A quick reminder today for everybody that this event is being recorded and to please keep your microphone on mute if you are not presenting. If you look at the bottom of your window in Zoom, there is a chat button, and we thoroughly encourage you to put questions into the Zoom chat box at any point. So please do feel free to ask questions of our presenters and of our keynote speakers at any point in time. We will come to all of these questions, and we're collating them for the Q&A panel that we'll have. So as you can see on the program slide, thanks Rachel. We will begin with a keynote from Kate Williams of FrontierSI, followed by a short question session with the audience, before moving to a second keynote, Introduction to EOCSI, by Dr. Amy Parker from CSIRO. Following this, we will have all three of our Phase 3 participant showcase videos, highlighting the amazing work that these three groups have done in such a short amount of time to progress their concepts. Followed by another round of questions to the audience, we will then have two of our final keynotes by James Pittman and Pramet Kanseri, and then we will have our Q&A session where we will collate all of the questions that have come through on the Zoom before wrapping up with closing remarks from Geoscience Australia. So without further ado, let me pass now to Kate Williams from FrontierSI to set the scene of the strategy that lies behind the work that this project is built on. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Roshni. I will just share my screen. Let's make this happen. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be here today, Roshni. I obviously work with Roshni on a regular basis, and it's really a joy to see projects like this come to their end, and I'm really looking forward to the presentations by the participants. I've been involved in the spatial industry for my whole career. I'm one of those lucky people that found the spatial industry at university, and I've spent the last 23 years editing and creating spatial data, working in Earth observation, and really getting my hands dirty on the data and the technology. But today I'm going to talk at a little bit of a higher level about how important I see our industry as being, and how we can all be better at getting the work that we do to have an impact and make a difference in society. So we're all here because we love technology and we love solving problems, and we love looking at pictures of the Earth. I was just fascinated by images such as this that I've been lucky enough to be able to see all my life. The first Landsat satellites went up in the early 70s. People went to the moon in the 60s, and we've been able to look back at Earth and really marvel at the beauty of our globe for a long time, which, you know, all of the generations before us really couldn't do. And I really like this image, and I like the one behind me. I actually went to Jakarta for the first time in January, and I really love to look at the way we're geographically close to Southeast Asia. We might not be able to turn on the TV and every day watch a TV program or people from Southeast Asia like we do for other parts of the world, like Britain and America, but photos like the slide that I'm showing you shows that we are really close, and projects like this, I hope, bring us closer together as people. So I thought I'd start with talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. We've all seen this now for a number of years, really familiar to us all. I'm sure there's people on the call who can recite all 17 and what they're for. I think it's interesting that we're in the middle of that decade of action that was called back in 2019. We're halfway through. And this decade, we were supposed to see real progress in Sustainable Development Goals, action at the local and the global scale, action that all of us could become involved in. Unfortunately, when the report came out in 2022, we're seeing, unfortunately, not just a lack of progress, but backward steps. The challenges of COVID that has caused economic crisis right across the world, and we're seeing it even in wealthy nations with increasing unemployment, increasing interest rates, and more of a local than a global view. Added to this, we've got climate change and natural disasters, and of course conflict. And conflict has caused some really terrible spin-off effects right across the globe, across all of these measures that we're looking at. But why am I talking about that in Earth observation and spatial? Because it's our role. Our role is to create the information, to store the information, be custodians of that information. Without our industry, it's really difficult to show the change that we're seeing over time, to collect the information and to make sense of it. So I really wanted to reflect on the role that we play. There's lots of really interesting data documents released by the UN GJM and other bodies on how the spatial industry and the Earth observation industry creates data, and how we should work together to create data. So I wanted to kind of highlight that we're all doing this at a local and aggregating it up to a national and a global scale so that we can measure and map the change. So I wanted to kind of note that this project as well is not just about creating the data, and we will get to nerd out a little bit later on the data, but it also goes to initiatives like Goal 17. Goal 17 is about working together and capacity building across countries. So using the knowledge of the developed world to help small island states, for example, to help our neighbours with the creation of data, with high quality, timely, reliable data, so that we can all have the same information to make decisions. And I think with the technology that we have today, it is in our power as an industry to create this information globally and to help people create high quality, timely and reliable data. So I think it's a really great time for our industry because we've got the data, we've got the tools, and I think we also as an industry have the will. So this is really about making an impact. I'm sure people have seen the pyramid of data to wisdom before. It's usually displayed with data at the bottom of the pyramid and wisdom at the top. I prefer to see it as a continuum or steps in a timeline. I think, yes, we have a lot of data. Data is what we can measure. Data are those pixels that we're getting from the satellites of reflectance, or the point that a statistics bureau gets from interviewing a household. Data is really what we can measure, and it's what we do really well. But to create impact, we need to move further on. We need to create information. So what are we learning? What can we see? Are we seeing the cutting down of forests? Are we seeing rising sea levels? Are we seeing urban development? You can ask a question once you can arrange that data and create new information from it. But so what? How does that help create knowledge? What do we know? Now we've got the data, we've got it arranged, and we can query it and create new types of information. How do we understand it? Why are we seeing the changes that we're seeing or the phenomena that we're seeing? So this is all about the past. This is what we can see. This is the image from the satellite, turning it into a data set and asking it a question. I think the most important one, and the way that we make an impact, is the next one, wisdom. So what have we learnt? What should we do now? How do we make a decision? I think it's a really future-focused use of our data, and that's really what we all want to do, and that's why we do it. So I wanted to kind of reflect on the idea that it's about getting to the end of this chain, but it's something more. It's about getting to a user. It's about working with people that have questions that they need answered, and they want to know the answer so they can do something different to make a change. And that could be at an individual farm, it could be from a government, and it could be from a nation. So I really want to stress that point that we're all here for users. And I think from the presentations I've seen in earlier seasons of the EOCSI presentations, people are really focused on that. They come with a really great use case, someone who wants to know something and wants to do something different. So my last slide, yes, I like looking at beautiful satellite images as much as the next person, and I especially love a good time-lapse video. And we all came into the industry because we love getting involved in the data and so much rich data. But really looking forward to some presentations today that focus on the use case and the users, the so what, and that's how we get all this type of data into action and making a difference. Thanks, Roshni.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kate. That set the scene beautifully for the way ahead. We'll pause here for just a quick question in Mentimeter. So I'd like to introduce Matt Padgett from CSIRO. The question that we're going to be looking at quickly now is, what are the biggest barriers to the uptake and application of Earth observation data for decision making in Southeast Asia? We'd like to invite you to join us either on your computer or on your mobile phone by going to www.menti.com and using the code 4998525. That's www.menti.com and then use the code 4998525. So that's in the chat for you there. I'll hand over to Matt.
Thank you, Roshni. Not much more to add here, I think. So we're going to collate the answers that we see from these questions and return to them later in the program today, either before the next question or at the Q&A session at the end of the day. Some things to think about with this question might be whether you might have a technical lens on this, or it might be governance, it might be access and usage, it might be implementation. So we're really interested in a broad range of responses here to get some insight into the challenges that you as the audience see around Earth observation data. Hopefully, during the course of today, you'll see that we're navigating through some of these challenges with some of the technology and some of the solutions. So hopefully you can log into Menti there or scan the QR code and take your time over the course of the next presentation or two to start plugging in your answers, please. Thank you. Back to you, Rosh.
Thank you very much, Matt. And on that note, I'd like to welcome our next keynote speaker, Dr. Amy Parker, Director of the CSIRO Centre for Earth Observation, for an introduction to the Earth Observation for Climate Smart Innovation initiative. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Roshni, and welcome everybody. Great to see faces old and new here today. So before we dive in, I'll again just acknowledge the Australian Government's Department of Industry, Science and Resources, who've really made this initiative possible through the Supporting Australian Innovation in Asia programme. And we'd also like to thank Indonesia's Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, who've supported Hasanuddin University to partner with us. And you'll hear a little bit more about that partnership over the next couple of slides. So if you could change the slide for me, please, Rachel. So the Earth Observation for Climate Smart Innovation Initiative, or EOCSI, is working to unlock the value of Earth observation data for Southeast Asia, using what's called the Open Data Cube as a platform for regional collaboration. So to introduce you to the initiatives, I'll start by highlighting these 3 principal objectives. The first is to use technology to unlock access to EO for the development of climate smart applications in Southeast Asia. So applications that use Earth observation data to track, to mitigate, and to help adapt to the impacts of climate change. Secondly, to grow the capability in the market in Southeast Asia for Earth observation products and services. And finally, to support businesses and organizations on both sides, so in Australia and Southeast Asia, to engage for mutual benefit, to deliver supported and locally tailored solutions. Over the longer term, the initiative is strengthening regional science relations, helping to grow capability and capacity to use new technology to address the challenges of climate change, and also to promote new partnerships across the region. And principal to the approach that we've taken is firstly the promotion of local ownership and benefit, so leveraging local knowledge to ensure that the solutions are fit for purpose. Second, scalability, implementing a scalable and flexible approach that enables greater sharing of the benefits of Earth observation across our region. Next slide, please, Rachel. So Earth observation data allows us to understand and adapt to climate change. But what is actually challenging is that with more and more data becoming available, it's becoming increasingly hard or overwhelming to unlock the maximum value that we could get from this data source. However, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. New Earth observation data science platforms are breaking down the barriers to entry and making it easier to access the data and to turn that data into actionable information and economic value. So on the left-hand side, you can see that previously users had to download, store, pre-process, and organize all of the data before they actually got to using it for solutions. Whereas with data science platforms, really all of those initial steps are taken care of and users can focus on delivering specific value. So in this initiative, we're developing regional capability in using these efficient, scalable, sustainable cloud computing data science solutions to support climate smart innovation that's underpinned by Earth observation. So EOCSI actually uses CSIRO's Earth Analytics Science and Innovation Platform Technology, or EASY for a shorter name. And EASY is built around the Open Data Cube. The Open Data Cube began as an Australian concept, but it's actually now an international technology innovation and community that's centered around making Earth observation data available to many more users in a more accessible, interoperable, and analysis-ready format. So EASY provides a truly scalable and managed implementation of the Open Data Cube using Amazon Web Services Singapore cloud computing infrastructure, the wealth of openly licensed analysis-ready Earth observation data sets, and also access to shared science and expertise from CSIRO, Geoscience Australia, and our partners. So if that made no sense to you, or if you're less familiar with the technical details, the key message is that these technologies are opening up access to Earth observation data, and all it requires is you to open up the interface through a web browser to be able to connect from most places in the world with an internet connection. So on the next slide, we take a look at the 4 major stages of this project. The first of those was the implementation of the technology that I've just described to you. And the second was working with a group of early adopters from Hasanuddin University, Indonesia, where we developed capability through an early adopter project. And this involved virtual training of academic staff and a project to co-design a climate smart innovation use case to assess climate impacts on the water quality of a lake called Lake Tempe in South Sulawesi, and then to work with the university to engage with end users in local government. In July last year, we then ran a virtual hackathon linking Australian and Southeast Asian organisations And during that hackathon, teams came together to develop climate smart use cases on the platform and undertake technical and business training. Then in the final stage of the project, a selection of those partners have been receiving additional support to turn those ideas into practical solutions with ongoing mentoring, training, and business support. So on the next slide, please, Rachel. So I'd really like to thank all of those who have engaged with this initiative over the last 18 months and helped to contribute to its success. The platform provides a foundational technical capability that allows our partners across the region to exploit large quantities of EO data. But beyond that, it also forms the basis for a knowledge and innovation hub to help scale up Earth observation data skills and applications and support the formation of trusted regional partnerships built around shared science and common needs. And we've grown a network of regional users through webinars like this one today, but also masterclasses and the hackathon. And that hackathon virtually brought together over 80 participants from across the region for a 5-day shared experience. And it's really great to see many of those participants online here today and to know of the lasting partnerships and connections that were created during that week. So this project is a concrete example of how we can work together to use Earth observation to promote solutions for sustainable growth and development across our region. And I'm really excited that next we get to hear from those hackathon teams whose ideas are now evolving into climate smart solutions. Thank you, Roshni.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amy. That was really informative and provides such a thorough and useful background to this project which we have here today. So I would now like to pass over to Matt very quickly oh no, we're going to go straight to the participant videos. So as you heard from Dr. Amy Parker just then, we have had 3 groups of participants who joined us across the entire phase of the project. And they are now at a point where we are able to show you how far they've come. So I'd like to introduce, first of all, a group called Delta Coast. Delta Coast is produced by Dr. Josh Simmons and Dr. Ben Williams. And together they are looking at how we can use synthetic aperture radar for coastal infrastructure monitoring. Josh and Ben have used Earth observation data and the EOCSI platform to work on how they can create an efficient solution to monitor coastal damage, including coastal defences and seawalls, in near real time over large spatial areas. This is a really practical climate-related solution that is applicable not only across areas of Australia, but also across many areas of Southeast Asia, where these climate impacts are much more readily noticed and can have impacts that are much larger. So we'll now see a great video from Josh and Ben, and I invite everybody here to remember to put in any questions that you have at any time into your chat box. We will use these in the Q&A at the end, and you'll be able to ask them directly to Josh and Ben.
Hi, my name is Josh Simmons and I'm a data scientist from Sydney with a background in coastal engineering. Along with Ben Williams, who will introduce himself later on, we've been looking at the application of synthetic aperture radar data, or SAR data, to coastal infrastructure monitoring. In particular, we've focused in on breakwaters, which are typically made up of individual rock armor units which can be moved around during storm events. Monitoring of our coastlines and coastal infrastructure is particularly important given the effects of climate change. There is the potential for sea level rise and changes in the frequency and severity of storm events, which make our coastlines particularly vulnerable to climate change. We believe that satellite data is vastly underutilized in coastal monitoring applications, and our mission is to bridge the gap between coastal problems and Earth observation solutions. Coastal systems are particularly well suited for monitoring with satellite data given the vast spatial scales involved, think of the scale of our coastlines around our region, and the fact that these are highly dynamic and constantly changing in response to wave conditions. We want to use satellite data to improve the efficiency of infrastructure monitoring, particularly in remote locations or where traditional surveying methods are difficult. We are particularly keen to realize the potential of the large increase in high-resolution commercial providers of SAR data that we have seen in the recent few years.
I'm Ben Williams, a metocean and coastal engineer with 20 years experience in coastal and marine infrastructure projects. I'm a visiting research fellow in coastal and ocean engineering at the University of Western Australia and the managing director of Ocean Analytics. We see strong growth potential in the application of Earth observation technology within the APAC region. There's presently rapid global growth in offshore wind, with the APAC region showing the greatest long-term growth potential amongst global markets. In terms of the maritime industry, Australia conducts 98% of its trade through ports. There is presently massive Commonwealth and state government infrastructure investment to increase throughput capacity and diversifying trade over the next 5 years. And lastly, we see strong growth potential for applications in coastal infrastructure and hazard management. The Insurance Council of Australia estimates $30 billion worth of investment is needed in large-scale coastal protection and adaptation projects over the next 50 years, as climate change makes coastal communities, property and infrastructure increasingly vulnerable. We have pursued 2 connected projects through the EOCSI launch programme. The first is change detection applied to coastal infrastructure, such as breakwaters and seawalls, and the second is quantifying nearshore conditions for design and maintenance applications around coastal infrastructure. You can see an example of our change detection in the graph on the top right hand of this slide, where we show you the change in backscatter as a function of time, and through our algorithms we're able to identify pre-storm conditions, damage that occurred as a consequence of a storm, and subsequent repair of that coastal structure after the 2016 June storm. Josh will take you through a second example of the application of our change detection in the following slides.
Here we see an example of our change detection algorithm applied to Sentinel-1 SAR data. SAR data is great for change detection because it is an active remote sensing product, which means that the signal that you get over time should be fairly consistent if things on the ground stay the same. This makes it relatively easy to detect large-scale changes, as we have done here monitoring the construction of a marina in Western Australia. You can see that our algorithm picks up the changes occurring through time, as indicated by the colour display, and we can see the progression of construction extending out from the land, as well as the removal of the previous breakwater and changes on the land in the construction staging areas. Through this program, we were able to do a comparison of coarser resolution Sentinel-1 data at 10 meters to very high resolution Capella SAR data at 50 centimeters resolution. We did this during a period of active construction, and you can see from the images on the left and the right that rocks were still being laid on the inside and the outside of the breakwater during this time. We can see that our Sentinel-1 change detection algorithm identifies that some changes occurred, but is unable to, in a fine way, identify the spatial variation in these changes. Our Capella data, however, shows up these changes in green and purple pixels and correctly identifies where rock has been laid. We also see that the Capella data is able to correctly identify areas where no change has occurred, given by these darker pixels here. We see that in this area that construction was completed before October and therefore no change has occurred. With the change detection we applied to the Capella data, we were able to see very fine scale changes. Here is an example of some mounds of material which were moved between October and December of last year. We see in green in this Capella change detection the fine details of the individual mounds that were moved. Again, in the Sentinel-1 data, we pick broad-scale changes in the construction staging area, but we really can't see the fine detail as in these higher resolution images. We can even see individual cars being moved in a parking lot. We're really excited about the opportunities that this higher resolution data brings to the monitoring of coastal infrastructure.
We are harnessing the growing commercial momentum in the latest high-resolution SAR technology and validating our products to ground truth data. We are connecting with potential clients for applications in the safety and maintenance of marine and coastal infrastructure, metocean, and coastal management.
So we hope that you thoroughly enjoyed that presentation from Josh and Ben from Delta Coast. They, as you heard, they have been using Earth observation data and the EASY platform to provide an efficient solution to monitor all types of coastal damage, including coastal defences such as seawalls. In this context, Earth observation data can provide near real-time monitoring of coastal infrastructure over large areas, and these data can be analysed to identify triggers for action and inform proactive adaptation and mitigation strategies for both managers and decision makers. Now we'll move to the next group, SARICUBE. They are looking at rapid urbanisation and increasing agriculture across Southeast Asia, which is resulting in significant clearing of ecologically significant coastal forests. The subsequent decline in coastal ecosystems, including mangroves and seagrass beds, also threatens the resilience of coastal communities facing hazards associated with climate change. Provision of Earth observation data can assist local communities and decision makers with tools to plan for and provide action towards strategic, alternative, and more sustainable forestry models. Remotely sensed data can also provide additional information on remote areas that are difficult to access on foot. Here is the short video provided by our SARICUBE team. Maritz, Jenny, Attila, So we hope that you thoroughly enjoyed that video. Our next presentation will be from Stephen Page. Stephen is looking at bird habitat conservation in Malaysia, using Earth observation data to monitor and map the integrity of the boundaries of important bird areas, or IBAs, in Malaysia. These boundaries can be compromised through damage, illegal clearing, and rezoning. Near real-time Earth observation data can provide regular updates to assist with conservation integrity and proactive management. Geospatial skills and funding is generally limited, making easy an important tool that provides pre-processed open source imagery. Over to you, Steve, for a live presentation.
Okay. I'll share my screen. This one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you can see that?
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Just turn my notes away. Good afternoon. I'm a geospatial scientist and I often focus on natural landscape processes is where I do a lot of my work, and trying to bring knowledge of that to people that are engaged with forest work. So I'm looking at Earth observation for community forest monitoring, or particularly natural landscape monitoring in Malaysia. So the products and the Earth observation products and outcomes that we're seeking, we benefit a network of consultants I collaborate with in Malaysia, everyone's based in Malaysia with a background in nature conservation advocacy and engagement, and work a lot with community-led initiatives. Earth observation input would be very useful at a range of different scales, from urban community forests right up to regional projects. There are some people starting to use global forest watch-based type approaches for national oversight of forest loss or conversion. It's still a fairly manual process, but the other four items I've listed here would all fall sort of outside the resolution of Global Forest Watch, really. So urban community forests are community action groups across Malaysia are mad keen on protecting local forest patches. There's a lot of activities going on. This is the greater KL, basically, the Klang Valley, and these dark green areas are the major remnant forest patches. But there's a lot of connectivity we're trying to work on between them as well. Where people are working, they're working on small patches and large patches, ungazetted government land, forest reserves, private land. If it's a green patch, people are trying to save it. So it's quite an active space. Further out, you come to inside the forest reserves, particularly you have to villages, indigenous villages still living within forest reserves, and villages adjacent to forest reserves still regard this as their lands, and tend to encroach into there to make plantations. If you look at this area here, we're deep within a forest reserve here, a loggable forest reserve, but you can see this area here is pretty well all converted from forest. There's durian plantations, there's rubber plantations, there's all sorts of different activities, there's landslides. And this is a great opportunity to, because this is sort of a bit under the radar for the agricultural support people, it's a great opportunity to bring some Earth observation information in for landscape and terrain mapping to to encourage some sustainable plantation practices amongst these people. Key biodiversity areas are a non-government classification. It's international, it's global, recognised by the IUCN. There's a real need with these areas to monitor and revise the boundaries as they're compromised because they're not official areas. So areas are being cleared and logged and sold off and around the edges, or worse, sometimes completely lost areas. So they need to be constantly revised and updated as efficiently as possible. And this is all got it. Responsibility comes down to the local NGO that partners with key biodiversity areas globally. So there's not much money for that sort of thing. There's also quite a big uptake of global sustainability standards in this part of the world. Things like the Forest Stewardship Council, which endorses forest harvesting sustainably. They're moving into natural rubber, sustainable natural rubber now, as the sustainable palm oil. And these processes rely heavily on Earth observation data to calculate not just the amounts of forest conversion, but the dates of the forest conversion, because the remedy costs that plantations have to pay are calculated over different time periods. So that's a big effort that's needed. The limitations on using Earth observation at the community level in Malaysia are we have virtually no access to government data sets. While people are very enthusiastic about flora and fauna and biodiversity, the understanding of landscape data is not great, and that's something we need to work on. And there's many small NGOs, so many, and they're so small that they often don't have the resources or skills for processing Earth observation data or even geospatial data. And there's also a high emphasis on UAVs. So if you mention satellite data to people, they just say, let's just get a UAV. So there's some technical issues with Earth observation in the tropics. It's not uncommon to have a study site where you'll have gaps of a year or more where there's absolutely no Sentinel-2 imagery that covers that area that's cloud-free over your site. That happens frequently. Also, where you can pick up forest conversion from the bare soil, you've really only got a window of a couple of months before rapid woody weed growth takes over and it's masked bare soil out. And the type of forest disturbance, it has an impact in that most of the disturbance is happening deep within forest reserves, or a lot deep within forest reserves, which are restricted access. So it's hard to do ground truthing. And the plantation species are usually forest species, such as rubber and durian and palm oil, and very difficult to pick out different signatures from the surrounding forest. So using the Easy Open Data Cube I've made a start. It's got some positives starting in terms of the technology, less so with the actual satellite imagery that we're using, but using the existing analysis-ready data sets, we're able to develop workflows, and those workflows make it very efficient to experiment with a range of different settings, whether it's analyses of indices, time periods and frequencies, changing the landscapes you're looking at, the land uses, the scale you're looking at, trying novel approaches, and then being able to apply that to external image data sets outside of the EASY platform. So the initial outcomes are that for most local scale assessments, using common indices, stats and approaches, Sentinel-2 and Landsat did not provide outputs suitable for what we're trying to use it for. But the developed workflows can be adapted to other novel approaches or data sets. So that's where we stand in terms of the next steps are to explores some more novel analysis approaches. Let's see what we can come up with there, and capitalise on the increasing availability of higher resolution analysis-ready datasets. So we'd import into EOCSI a range of these low-cost or open-source datasets, such as the planet-based maps over the tropics that are currently available, the ALOS SAR level 1 data, even getting access to people's citizen drone footage, and any other data sets that we might come across. So just acknowledgement there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. That was really informative and very well done. We really appreciate it. So I would now like to welcome Matt Padgett to the screen. Matt will introduce us to the next question on Mentimeter for audience engagement. Over to you, Matt.
Sorting out my buttons. Thank you, Roshni. Thank you, Steve, and Josh and Ben and Team Sarawak. Excellent presentations. Thank you. So this is our second question in Menti that you can dive into. We had 13 responses from the first question, so that's great. So hoping those 13 can dive into this one as well. I might go through a couple of the results from a couple of summary results just to get a bit of a heads up of what people are talking about with us. But this second question here, scan the barcode, go to menti.com, plug in the code, etc. This second question is, what are the key trends of Earth observation? So the first one was looking at barriers. So in terms of barriers, we might be thinking of things current that might be blocking us. But with this question, we're looking at what you think the future opportunities or challenges might be around the use of satellite Earth observation for the system. So if you've answered the first question, dive into the second one. Or if you didn't answer the first one, you can dive into both questions. I might just put up a couple of the summary results from the first round. Intermediate results. If I can find my share screen button. I think that one will get us there. Maybe I can make that full screen for us as well. Okay, how's that? Can I increase the size a bit better? Does that come through okay?
That looks great. Thanks, Matt.
So this is, if you like, a tabularized bit of mind map from some of the answers that have come through. I've gone through and picked out some of the key comments and organized them into some categories that make a little bit of sense to me, I suppose. But as one looks through the answers, there's a little bit of grey area and overlap where you could put some of the commentary into multiple boxes. But a couple of key themes that start to tease out for me. Some strong interest around the discovery and fit for purpose of Earth observation data. So it sounds like we could do a little bit more collectively as a community around describing what the use and opportunities are for some of these Earth observation data and the products derived from them thereafter. And probably maybe one vote there, but I think a really key point is to look towards non-technical language as we describe the outputs of these products. Very true. It is easy when talking to scientists for the scientists to drift back into their technical language and technical talk. And you will hear through this presentation various acronyms and names of different satellites. And if you're not familiar with them, I respect that can be a challenge to understand the differences in some of those terms. So take that on board. Thank you very much. There's some really good commentary, some questions around the technical aspect of skill development and training of people, infrastructure requirements for using the Earth observation data, internet speeds, particularly in regional areas, and a comment there as to assumptions that we may make in Australia about availability and internet speed that may not be applicable in Southeast Asia. We're fully aware of. It's kind of hard to test from Australia, as you can probably appreciate. So we require and we hope to gather more feedback from yourselves around what works in this regard. And the data volumes associated with a lot of these Earth observation data. That's a primary challenge, and largely that's an opportunity that we think we can exploit with the technologies described in this presentation today around the Open Data Cube and the EOCSI platform, and the community that's built up around those software solutions, a global community. So some really interesting topics there on technical. A couple of points here on validation and verification. I think this is a really important point, but we do find we often have to raise it as well, so it sometimes can get missed. But it becomes really important when we're using global data to try and answer local problems or find information regarding local problems. Again, it comes down to a trust aspect as well. What can we trust in the results? And if we've got that as scientists, but also anyone in the information pipeline, they really need to having the ground and the validation data to tie back to our output products to provide some metrics and some information as to how good the output product is versus reality. I think it's a really important point for gaining trust in our output products from Earth observation. And cloud coverage in Southeast Asia, in the equatorial zones globally, it's a big challenge, and that does mean we need to do things a little bit different in our workflows, particularly when using the optical and infrared satellite sensors that are affected or that will see the top of clouds. And some of the and be affected by some of the marginally transparent cloud types out there. The use of Sentinel-1 and ALOS synthetic aperture radar data, growing that footprint in Southeast Asia, or the use of those data in Southeast Asia, I think is really important. That speaks to Josh and Ben's application, and I think Steve mentioned it there as well. That's a capability we're building. And to be honest, I think for the people we speak to, our partners through Southeast Asia, there's actually a lot of good knowledge, capability and expertise in Southeast Asia with using radar data, Earth observation radar data. And it's probably something we can learn a little bit from each other about as well. And the fourth bucket of answers relates to the information, the applications, and the output side. So there's some links into the legal aspects and policy aspects. How do we trust, again, some of these products? How to ensure repeatability, and how do we navigate around some economic constraints such as price of commercial data versus free medium resolution data. These are things we're aware of, and for our experience, they normally have to be treated on a case-by-case basis as our requirements and our governance requirements and our let's say as our governance requirements catch up with our science capabilities. And Kate at the start mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals, and I think that's a really great upper level or top level umbrella hook that we can attach a lot of our activities to, so that as we build our science applications and understand the role they have in social governance and economics networks regionally, we can understand how they can apply into providing information for governments to address Sustainable Development Goals. So that's a quick little summary of results to date. Hope that spurs some thinking for you. I'll stop sharing here. Hand back to Roshni, but if we can, you're welcome to keep answering against that question 1, but happy if you start answering against question 2 as well. Roshni might just put that slide back up quickly. Maybe I have to stop sharing. Try to do that. Yep. Maybe Roshni can put that slide quickly up, but we'll hand back to Roshni to carry on with a set of presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt, and thank you, Rachel, for bringing up the slide on the Mentimeter as well. So just a reminder that if you could go to www.menti.com and use the code 5879471, we have the next question for you to ponder as we listen to our coming 2 keynote speakers. And this question is, what are the key trends of Earth observation? So as we are progressing to think about what the key trends are in Earth observation, I'd now like to welcome Mr. James Pittman. James is the Acting General Manager of the International Science and Resource Branch, Department of Industry, Science and Resources, to provide his keynote presentation. Welcome, James.
Hi, thanks so much. Now, I'm not sure whether you, yes, okay, I can see myself now. Hopefully a 4:15 on a Monday afternoon presentation won't send too many of you packing away early. So my intent is to try and provide a bit of a capstone, hopefully, to the great conversations that you've already been having today about the value of Earth and marine observing technologies, through a bit of a case study about some recent Australian government investments that we've been making in this space. But firstly, I just want to make sure, can people hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Now I don't, oh yes, I can share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Great.
Great. Okay, the system works. So I'm James Pittman. I'm from the Australian government and I'm here to help. Try not to laugh too hard at that. I'm from the Department of Industry, Science and Resources, and I'm the Acting General Manager for International Science and Resources. So I have a fairly large portfolio. My team manages the bilateral science and technology relationships with the world, with a very, very important focus on Southeast Asia, which makes the discussions today very, very salient. But we also manage the bilateral treaty practice for Australia. So we manage Australia's treaties with all countries globally on science and tech, and that gives us a really important vehicle to actually extend the conversation out of policy and into implementation. And that's what I want to talk about today. So before I get going, though, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm presenting to from today, which is the Ngunnawal people. I want to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and also their continuing connection to land and sky. I think it's actually very appropriate that we're talking about Indigenous knowledge and its role in growing Australia's science capabilities. Because at the Commonwealth level, we're doing a couple of things at the moment. We're reviewing our national science and research priorities, and we're also looking at how we can better embed First Nations values and priorities into those national science and research priorities. And when I think of technologies like Earth and marine observing as well, I just want to kind of labour the point that it's actually the combination of leveraging that 60,000 years of continuous knowledge and new technologies to actually better prepare for bushfires, to better understand how bushfires can work throughout country. And it's the meshing of these technologies that actually provides a uniquely Australian scientific gain, which is something that we can then take to our region throughout Southeast Asia and actually apply really tangibly and show that further progression of Australia's First Peoples knowledge. So just to take it back, Australia, we know, is actually a world leader in the utilisation of Earth and marine observation technologies. And we've been working at the forefront of building capacity across a number of regions, Southeast Asia and also Latin America, to grow that technical capability further. So I'd like to firstly start off by congratulating all the organisers of today for leading the Earth Observation and Climate Smart Innovation Project. This project was supported by my department under the Supporting Australian Innovation in Asia International Science Fund, and is really key to what we see as a major opportunity for Australia to connect and collaborate with key geostrategically important partners across Southeast Asia. We share a very common vision for achieving a balanced, innovative, secure, sustainable and inclusive region in the Indo-Pacific. And I think part of that is around how can we actually translate the benefits of technology into applications in country. So a couple of years ago, it was about 2017, I had the privilege of leading a major piece of work that I want to talk to you about today. So the potential of Earth and marine observing throughout the Asia-Pacific region was very much alluded to, but not really captured in any tangible way, and wasn't really broken down in a way that could actually provide actionable policy advice across our region. So we in Australia were very much at the forefront within the Asia-Pacific, having had Digital Earth Australia launch, the development and partnership in the Digital Earth Africa movement as well. I think it gave us really strong foundational understanding of how we can deliver that technical gain, but we didn't really understand what were the challenges in a systemic model across Southeast Asia. So my team partnered with APEC to try and unpack for the APEC region, which is predominantly Southeast Asian countries, how can we actually understand what the future potential of this class of technologies are if we don't know where we are right now? So we commissioned a report, the current and future value of Earth and marine observing to the Asia Pacific. And it was really quite a groundbreaking report. So it was launched the day of the ministerial meeting of the Group on Earth Observations Summit in Canberra in 2018. And it was the first time that we really had a baseline study that actually looked at all of the elements of Earth and marine observation technologies, looked at the current investment that was happening within systems across our region, and then looked to model, well, what would growth look like? What is growth likely to be? And what's a very conservative estimate of what that value is? Because if we know where we're heading already, then we know what additionality will provide. And what additionality will provide in a range of Southeast Asian contexts. We're not talking about a uniform area. We're talking about a really diverse group of countries at various levels of technical proficiency, data analytics capability, STEM capability, the actual workforce requirements to actually make use of these investments. So you've got a really eclectic mix of challenges and opportunities to bed down what EMO can do for that country. And that was really important for me in international science to be able to progress a meaningful conversation with my peers in Singapore, in Vietnam, and Thailand. So we weren't just saying Earth and marine observation is great, you really need to take it up, without really unpacking what the specific gains are for that economy. So in this report, that baseline provided us a really fantastic glimpse of what we're currently investing and where we were going. And so the current value of Earth and marine observing technologies to APEC was conservatively worth $372 billion in 2019. So we thought, wow, this is actually a pretty amazing current level of value of this technology class when you compare it to other digital technologies. And we were really cognizant that we're talking about a range of technologies a range of different applications, and a range of different sectors that are going to benefit from it too. So I know that you've all been talking about a number of case uses or user cases that provide a lot more context for how this data can be interpreted and applied. And that was very much, we were very mindful of that, because different sectors of the economy will take up EMO technologies at different rates across Southeast Asia. It depends on their national makeup. It depends on how much they're willing to invest in additional capability. And it also is about where it makes sense for them in their economy. So how are they going to achieve their national growth aims through investments in new and emerging technologies? Well, we went a little bit further and tried to actually break it down into a subsectoral basis. So if the current value of Earth and marine observing technologies was 372 billion, notwithstanding COVID. I don't have a corrections for COVID impact, unfortunately. But if we took that as the base, what would the future be? What, based on current investment trends and current case uses, if we produced a very, very minor or a very conservative lens to growth in this technology class, what would it be by 2030? And this helped us provide just a very steady growth trajectory based on a number of different economic factors that we can go into later. But that kind of forecasting really helped to position in my counterparts' minds and other economies' minds, well, why should I invest in this? And what is the net benefit to me and my sectors? Because it's not one question about investment in Earth observation technologies. It's about a class. It's about how you apply it to a range of different sectors too. So the outcome was we calculated the benefit to the region as 1.35 trillion of future potential value to the APEC region. And this was really quite amazing. I think what I found the most useful about it, and the point that definitely cut through with many stakeholders to really transform their vision about, well, why should we be investing in this topic, is the disproportionate benefit to industry. I think overall, a very, very large amount of discussion that occurs within the Earth observation community is around disaster management, very deservedly, I would say. Also climate change adaptation and climate change or environmental concerns. There are a lot of great use cases out there, but I would say that within a government sphere and many Southeast Asian governments too, it's very much seen as a nice to have, not as a fundamental underpinning of economic growth. And so this report really did change the conversation and provided us a tool to talking to the APEC region countries about, well, this is actually a very, very important economic driver for our region. And so how can we actually unpack that value a lot further? So the report analysed the Earth and marine observation technologies for each, oh, yes, here I am. So what we did was we broke it down into a series of snapshots into each economy's preparedness to take advantage of that future capability. So can you see my mouse? Is that something that people can see? Yes, okay. I don't know how to get rid of that, but so up here where we've got the value, what I find really, really compelling and something that I still use today to talk to countries about the opportunities to collaborate with Australia is to talk through the assumptions and also to talk through what the opportunity actually is. We're talking about in those terms, 2019, it was currently worth $2.4 billion to Indonesia. But this was a very rapidly growing technology field, and the dependence on EMO technologies to your sector and to your industry will grow to about 13.6 billion. So this is a really great way for me to actually talk in a practical term with the governments of other countries about why they need to also be making preparatory investments in this technology class to make sure they don't miss out. Because this 13.6 billion is not a foregone conclusion, and in fact is very, very mobile. And so a lot of it is also about how do you make sure that you're not missing out? Well, This is also one of the key unique features of this, report, was we then further went on to say, but what would happen if you actually collaborated with other countries on Earth and marine observing technologies? And of course, you know, being from the Australian government, I do have somewhat of a bent towards driving collaboration towards our system. But I think what that difference between 13.6 billion to your economy value versus 17 billion is salient. It's really important, and it shows the difference between BAU and minor investments in the collaborative architecture that you need to invest in to gain benefit from it. What we also did was we plotted out the value of Earth and marine observing technologies across what we'd call the kind of life cycle of EMO tech, and tried to crystallize for governments which sector within this class of technologies will you attract the best bang for buck. So this is about focusing our conversations with Indonesia about where they can actually extract greater technical capacity. What I found quite interesting was a number of economies are actually much more advanced than you may expect, but it's also reflective of their different economy sizes. So I'll just go to the next one. So if I compare that one to Singapore, Indonesia to Singapore, you'll actually see that Singapore is a bit lower down in terms of the value chain of where Singapore should be focusing their investments. This is unsurprising when you consider the size of the Singaporean economy, their focus in terms of the direct benefits to their sector. A lot of their extracted value from investments in EMO will actually be in on services or service economy provisions, but actually what they lack is a data capability more fundamental to their provision of further supply. So it was quite a useful lens through which we could actually view this technology class as actually aiding our collaborations with other partners, but also from a more utilitarian perspective, we see collaboration as important no matter who it's with. As you have no doubt seen, the benefits of collaboration between one country or another, the lessons learnt in applications of EMO technologies can be directly applied in a new context very, very quickly. So I think what we really wanted to provide was more of a starting point for conversations to be able to move the conversation into a deeper sense of where is the investable solution and what is actually the industry problem that we were seeking to overcome. This report also stimulated a new range of initiatives at the Commonwealth level. We also invested in the development of a data cube with Latin American stakeholders. So we use this very much as a launch pad to bring Australian research institutions to the challenge of developing that base data capability, especially around Chile. So the Chilean data cube that we worked with collaboratively with Geoscience Australia, CSIRO, and a number of group on Earth observation members really helped Australia to cement its technical proficiency as a provider of best practice solutions on the continent. And Latin America was one of those target areas that we weren't they weren't front of mind for us, to be quite frank. But what the report provided us was a really clear rationale for why we should be working with Chile, working with other partners like Peru and Mexico, and showing them what the pathway to collaboration and a collaborative outcome could be. So great demonstrations like Digital Earth Australia as an endpoint in this technology ride that we were on was also really, really handy. We use this obviously to drive collaborations across our Commonwealth research system, but we're also really cognizant of the importance of private sector players like FrontierSI in this. The final thing that I just flag here is that more broadly, and I'm really conscious that I'm at time, I apologise, but more broadly, the Australian government and our portfolio agency, the Australian Space Agency, has produced its own Earth observation roadmap. So much of our work in this preparatory report actually went directly into the establishment of the space roadmap for Earth observation technologies, and that plan really did outline that there is a growing and urgent need to better position Australia as a collaborator of choice in the region, but also to invest in our sovereign capabilities in a pipeline of Earth observation technologies. And I think this really does build on our investments to date, especially in research collaborations. But I think the Space Agency is also seeking to expand that into the hardware that we're going to be using across the region as well. So I'm going to finish up there and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk. I'm happy to hang around and answer any questions, but hopefully that was of interest, and the report itself is available on industry.gov.au. Feel free to download, share with your friends, and hopefully we can drive some more collaborations with Australian researchers in Southeast Asia. Thanks so much.
Thank you, James. That was extremely informative and really interesting. Collaboration, as you say, lies at the heart of, pardon me, being able to progress the way that our economies work together to support each other. So I'd like to invite our final keynote speaker before we move to Q&A, and we'll see you again then. Dr. Pramet Kemesri, who is the Innovation Development Officer, pardon me, at the Office of Geoinformatics Product Innovation for Geoinformatics and Space Technology Development Agency, GISTA. So apologies for coughing and spluttering through your introduction, Pramet. Welcome aboard.
Okay, everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Pramet Kemesri from the Geoinformatics and Space Technology Development Agency from GISTA. Today, I would like to talking about the Earth observation and geospatial technology for climate change, information on adaptive agriculture. Is my organization has a focus on the correct about the observation data and application for support about the organization, government organization in the main of the mission of the my organization, and the most one of application from the Earth observation data is application to the agriculture. From the satellite to the agriculture application, we separate in about the first one to analyze on the ground. We separate on the crop area, crop status, crop health, crop damage, main on the flood and drought, and the last one is the biomass. This application is show about the monitoring the situation of the economic crop cultivation in the Thailand. That include about the rice, maize, sugarcane, and cassava. This product is about it update in every 2 weeks. Follow in the web application. In another one, we try to about monitoring about the flood situation. We collect the data from the Earth observation in the last 10 years about the flood statistical or in the over the Thailand, and to classify about the to computation technique and analyze method to classification in the economic crop, and the result for the monitoring about the situation of the economic crop such for support about the agricultural management and the water management. for another web application about the monitoring about situation, just like about the flood situation. We get about the computation from about the Moniz observation data first, and to the analyze to the find about the index for the support about the government organization in the manage about the agriculture in the drought area over the Thailand. And so we get about the one about the flood product and the drought product. We to the support about the assessment of the plant damage from the natural disaster. The data as provide about the drought index area and flood area to assess about the damage in the agriculture area. The database from this result support about the government agency for the agriculture management from natural disaster in case about the flood and droughts. So this one is about the future plan about the we try to get about the observation to assessment of the biomass from agriculture area. We plan about the next year about to get about the funding from the organization, from the government organization, government funding from the support this one. Another one is about the monitoring of the crop health. We focus on about the weather and climate, and to include about the crop yield and crop water and crop pest and crop disaster for about the monitoring about crop health and warning about crop stress. And another one we focus on about the weather climate from the crop yield, crop water use, and about the crop pest, crop disease, and crop calendar. This one is focused on the crop yield prediction. We get about the climate data parameter, just like a temperature, max sunrise, relative humidity, wind, rain, and temperature average, and get about the index from the observation data, just like a crop area, crop state, and crop health, to combination to find about the crop yield prediction over the Thailand in the future. Another one we want to plan to create about the crop water use from the satellite data. We prepare about the data from the observation data from the satellite, and try to create about the evapotranspiration from the tree and grass and runoff for find about the transpiration over the Thailand. And the last one of the second part is we focus on the crop pest and crop disease. It's an application we want to focus on about the get about the weather and climate data from the satellite, and find about the condition from the predict and monitoring about damage from the pest and the disease from the agriculture. And the last one we plan to about the monitoring about the greenhouse gas emission, just like about the CO2 and methane. We get about the data from the observation data from the satellite, and try to the monitoring about the carbon dioxide over the global. And another one is a monitoring on the Southeast Asia to support data for the climate government department. Another one we support about the methane data from the satellite to the government to the climate change department in Thailand. And in this year we plan to about the combination between the satellite observation data and climate change climate model to the adaptive agriculture area. This part is a show about the regional climate model for the projection climate over the Southeast Asia. We get about the data from the global topography data from the Earth observation, sea surface temperature data, atmospheric data, and surface data, and to the extent to the over the study area is Southeast Asia and over the Thailand to make about the initial condition data to and support about the climate change model to find about the Dow index. That is the last one under on the climate scenario, just like about RCP 2.6, RCP 4.5, and RCP 8.5, prepare for the combination with the satellite data. And this slide is show about the how to combination between about the satellite data and the regional climate model data. In the left hand side is show about the data we get from the about the satellite analysis. Just like about the in the first one is the crop health and crop state. We get about from the such as about the NDVI index, LST index, VCI index, and TCI index, and crop area and yield estimate. We computation and analysis from about the satellite data, satellite observation data in the economic crop, just like right about the it's just such as about the rice, sugarcane, mesh, cassava, rubber, and oil palm. And the right hand side is about the climate change modeling. We have about the modeling resolution about the 75 kilometer and under about the projection scenario, RCP 2.6, RCP 4.5, RCP 8.5 under CMIP 5, and the SFP 1, SFP 2, and SFP 5 under the CMIP 6. And next step, we downscale to the 5 and 1 kilometer to get about the climate model, climate variable, just like about the relative humidity. Then for temperature, max temperature mean, and average temperature or sunshine. And the last one, we combination about the two data to the actionable intelligent policy for support about the government official or government department in the Thailand, and the output of the actionable intelligent policy, or we can call about nickname is AIP, is a yield prediction based on about the climate scenario and the warning about the disaster just made in the flood and drought and so some sort of onset event, just like about sea level rise and land subsidence. And the data is we try to the combination between about the satellite and the climate model in the high resolution at the 1 kilometer for adaptive agriculture. And the outputs on the platform, we have about the high resolution map and crop adaptation dashboard. Okay, thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Pramet. That was very, very informative, really interesting to understand that broader context there and the detail about the technical aspects which you provided there. So I'm very excited to say that we have now reached the time for working through the questions that have come through in chat and open discussion. We'll start off this section with going through more of our Mentimeter results. So I'll now pass over to Matt to take us through that before we jump into the questions in the chat. If you would like to take a moment now to please enter into the chat or the Q&A section any questions that have come up for you as we've been passing through each of our keynotes today or through any of our participant presentations today. We thoroughly look forward to having a look at those in more detail. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Roshni. Thank you, presenters. I think it's been a great session so far. Now we get to answer some questions of the presenters today and discuss some topics that may be relevant. So I think there's a couple of channels there where you can submit your questions and comments, and together the team will address them as we go through. I might just start with a summary of the question 2 activities. Answers, I mean. Just checking if there's any more results coming through. Well, it looks like we've got about 14 votes, 14 answers on the second question there. So one more than the first. That's great. Wonder how many same people in both camps of question 1 or question 2. No matter, it's anonymous. I wouldn't know. Let me share my screen. I think we're up and going there. Does that look okay?
It does, yeah.
Great. I wonder actually if I can just make it all a bit bigger. Can I get rid of some of that? Oh, no, that's, yeah, no. It is what it is. So our second question is, what are the key future trends of Earth observation? And this is a bit more challenging to aggregate, actually. There was a lot of diversity in some of the answers, and in that previous half hour or so, I did my best to aggregate into a couple of different sections. So some really interesting answers, actually, some of which I might have been able to guess at, and some which were actually quite unique and new to me. So I'd actually be interested in exploring some of them. There was a set of questions or set of answers around EO satellite technologies, some strong emphasis on LiDAR and hyperspectral data sets being made more available. Satellite synthetic aperture radar, SAR, had a couple of good votes come through, and UAVs as well. I think Steve mentioned this one in his presentation as well, and maybe as a question chat there. So general trend to, I think, increasing space-time resolution across the different sensing technologies that we have. And I say that in the context of how the Earth observation satellite sensors work. Predominantly, they look at optical and infrared. It's the common ones that sort of sees the greens and the browns and the blues when you don't have clouds in the way. And radar will penetrate through the clouds, but show you a different kind of roughness. And then LiDAR and hyperspectral, they're more emerging technologies, both in a science domain and in a satellite operational domain as well. And they introduce some different dimensions and dynamics to how we handle the data as opposed to the previous ones.
Interrupt you there. We've got James who's come up with his hand up. James, what would you like to say?
No, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt things. I was just going to say, Matt, when I was looking through your list, one of the key elements that we definitely had a major learning from in the development of that Southeast Asia report was trying to figure out, well, what actually is a driver for a future trend in Earth observation investment. And where we landed was really trying to unpack the consumer's willingness to pay as a bit of a proxy measure for a range of different technologies. And I think it's just a really useful overarching tool to be able to apply to each of these sub areas. And ultimately what that looks like in practice, and we've got a chapter in the report about it too, which can be helpful, but it's a hard measure because a consumer's willingness to pay in the mining sector is very different from a recreational fisher. But actually at aggregate, it provides a really good basis for how important is it to your economy overall. So I was just going to throw that in as well.
Yeah, no, thanks, James. I think it's the pay for use of some of the commercial satellites, I think, popped up in question 1 there. But I think if it's okay, I might interpret that one as how we get that balance right between a paid service versus, let's say, government's collective investment in public good data provision and products for which the users may not pay, but someone pays in the system somewhere. And it's worth us remembering and noting that for a lot of the Earth observation work we do currently and we're able to do, and that you get access to through Google Earth Engine and other such, and Google Maps and so forth, and other such public and open mapping platforms, is all driven by government investment somewhere. And in particular, the United States through NASA and USGS and NOAA, and the European Copernicus program probably carry the majority of the global load in terms of that public good investment. But it's worth noting that nothing comes for free in this system. So whether it's a user at the end pays or not, it's someone's paid somewhere. Thanks, James. One last topic on the EO satellite technologies was the onboard processing and direct information products available out of some of the satellites. And I think this is an emerging area of some of the sort of the CubeSat style activities, where we can be the satellites can be designed to be a bit more customized. So that you can imagine that would be pretty cool over time. I expect that connected to your phone, you could connect to a small satellite scooting over the top of you at a certain time and getting direct live to phone information off the satellite. That would be very cool indeed, yeah. Some good topics around AI and machine learning. I note there that harking back to the validation and training data and ground data topic that we mentioned in question 1, it's really important to have good validation and training data to feed our AI and our machine learning algorithms. The topic around analysis-ready data, this is maybe not mentioned in exact words in some of the answers, but as my interpretation. And this is a scenario where the science and the operational community can make a data product that's going to suit, say 80% of the users. It's a good product for further analysis thereafter, and it looks after all the Earth observation stuff that has to happen prior to getting that data product ready. Combining multiple Earth observation types, and that's maybe sort of a sensor agnostic kind of approach, and more platforms and tutorials about how to do these data analyses would be appreciated. I'll skip the next section. There's some application trends that came through. There's combining multiple data types again. Some nice topics around applied and aggregated applications. Didn't want to say applications twice there in the sentence, but couldn't help it. But these, for my money, use Earth observation data, but in a specific domain context, if you like. So they have to be combined in a way that makes sense for the decision makers that you're trying to target. So digital twins, that's quite a topical term at the moment, relating to a set of digital data sets that can replicate a part of a system. For those unfamiliar with the term, it's born out of the manufacturing industry, but we can apply it to environmental problems as well. And I noticed in the chat one person asking about urban greening, and I think that's a good digital twins is one lens we could look at urban greening, because you need a little bit of Earth observation, but you need the infrastructure and cadastre and building information, road information that you might get from other sources as well. Links to the insurance industry are mentioned. Real-time decision support. Prediction's a really hard one because the satellites don't look forward in time. So we have to use our expert knowledge to understand what the system is trending towards based on our real-time data. A couple of mentions of the atmosphere. More Earth observation data for assessing atmosphere change, not just land condition change. And the one I've highlighted there in yellow is one I've never thought of before. Yeah, good on you. Carbon neutral storage and processing for all this stuff. That would be a really interesting topic to look into. How can we demonstrate that we have a carbon neutral, or let's say a trajectory towards a carbon neutral approach for, let's say, the whole chain of custody from design and build and launch of satellites all the way through to the storage and the processing of these data. And perhaps, I don't know how one does that accounting, but perhaps you gain a value from more information at the end of the processing pipeline that lets you trade off against some of the carbon expenditure that you might have had during the development of the data set series. So that was a really interesting one. So that's my little summary from question 2. I think that's a really great blend of answers. Thank you very much, everyone. I might release my screen sharing here, and we'll hark back to the we'll throw back to the Q&A questions maybe coming through the chat, and led by Roshni, might open up for more commentary and questions direct to presenters. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Matt. I'd like to invite now all of our keynote speakers and all of our representatives from the participant groups to please join us on the screen.
Few faces appearing there slowly, Rosh.
Wonderful. So we have several of our keynote speakers and presenter groups here with us today. I'd like to just quickly ask if we could do a quick round of introductions for the groups. Josh and Ben, if you'd like to just give us a wave. Wonderful. And Team SARACube, if you'd like to give us a wave. Wonderful. And Steve, if you could say hello to us as well. Wonderful. So I can see that we have a couple of things in the chat that have come through. Not too many, so I thoroughly encourage anyone who has a question, anyone who is curious to learn a little bit more about something, or anyone who is broadly interested in Earth observation and the applications between Australia and Southeast Asia. And a special shout out to anybody who liked the sound of what Steve had to say and would be interested in working with him from Australia. So in terms of our first question, I think it would be curious to understand from the participants who have been within the Earth Observation for Climate Smart Innovation program over the course of the whole program so far. What do you feel is most useful about the EASY platform? Please do unmute yourselves and feel free to speak.
I think if I speak just briefly for Josh and I think the thing that we found most useful about the EASY program, I should say, was the ease in which we could prototype algorithms. We had quick access to the imagery. It was a very user-friendly format, and we were able to pretty quickly investigate the data and play with it in lots of ways to find out the best avenues to further explore in greater detail just a little bit further down the line. And it was a very interesting process to go through, and very engaging as well. So yeah, lots of good things to say about it.
Steve, did you want to contribute anything?
Well, I think Ben said it pretty well there, and I said a bit in my slides, but I think when Ben said it's engaging, that's really true, because once you get a workflow going, then you can play around with different options. I haven't really got into the swing of that yet, but I've seen it a little bit. You know, you can get into it, you can just get into doing stuff and you're not worrying about, you know, processing data and things like that. So.
Thanks. And anyone from Team Syracuse?
Ladies first, maybe somebody from the others. If not, I start. I don't know. I thought it was really nice that you have access to so many different people. You can talk to some web designers, you can talk to some business people, and there was so much different information that I never considered in my daily job and thinking about observation data. So I think that was really quite mind-broadening. Sorry, I have to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Moritz. And please don't worry about having family crop into the screen with you. So a question now for all of our panelists across our keynotes, as well as anyone interested from our participant groups. UAVs are increasingly popular. What are the challenges that you see of integrating UAVs and EO data in the Open Data Cube, such as EASY?
It's a really interesting question, isn't it? And UAVs, they're exploding everywhere, and you can use them in a wide variety of backgrounds. I'd say one of the disadvantages of UAV, they have many advantages, but one of the disadvantages that makes Earth observation technology so compelling, particularly at the high resolutions, is that UAVs involve an extraordinary amount of paperwork and manpower as well. So maybe a few years ago, you'd be able to have one person go out and simply, it was a bit of a no man's land cowboy kind of environment. You could go out and do a survey of some sort, whereas these days, to do it properly and safely, it's a significant amount of effort. And I think there is a lot to be said for trying to work out ways in which you can marry some of the, maybe the intermediate resolution stuff, plus also maybe the higher resolution aspects, which maybe is a smaller area, with those UAV vehicles for a variety of different payloads. Yeah, that's, as to how that'll be solved, I'm not sure, but I think that'll be an interesting one to watch.
And does anyone have any comments on how we can strengthen the strategic relationships across Australia and Southeast Asia, which was one of the broad goals of this project? Kate, James?
I was just finding the unmute. So I think, look, the key thing from my perspective that would be really incumbent on everyone on the call to do is to actually talk to their science ministries and their broader ministries about the specific tangible value that you can achieve with EO technologies, and actually push that message internally as much as possible, because ultimately much of that future possible investment is going to be a real tug of war with other technologies that have a lot of kind of capture with ministers and with governments. There's new pressing issues every other day. So how you actually increase that slice of importance for Earth observation technology as a class of investment and really demonstrating those tangible links to industry sectors is really, really important. What I'm also finding very much is our industry sector is very alive to the opportunities of Earth observation technologies. What they're looking for are platform technologies that can expand market access. And that's where I actually think EO is really interesting because most of the time, the way that Australia has been collaborating across Southeast Asia, we're leveraging data sources from other parties like the US, but we have the exact same capacity to apply an AI or an algorithm in Southeast Asia as we do in our own country. And so as a platform technology, it's actually really compelling because what it does is it allows startups to access new data. It allows them to commercialize in their own country. It provides a lot of capacity building as well, and a lot of information sharing. So where I stand, I'm interested in collaboration, which is for public good, and I'm interested in innovation, which is generally for profit. And both of those things actually, they're not mutually exclusive, and they're actually really important to furthering the application of EO. One of the questions was actually around kind of what was it? It was about kind of applications in capital planning and works, and I think this is very much a ripe area. So a lot of the times, capital work questions are kind of for EO. They're often asked within a disaster resilience kind of question or a post-disaster management context. So what is the impact of low-lying buildings? How can we use EO to help us map out that disaster? Where I'm really interested and where I get a lot of engagement from the broader tech community is actually around foresighting and risk mitigation, but also in insurance. So it's actually the financial services sector which probably have the most to gain from it, but it's probably the most impenetrable topic if you're in fintech. So it's one of those things where it's a learning sector, and I'd say that the iteration of this is going to happen very, very quickly. And I think there's a lot of application in Southeast Asia in particular, which has a very booming population, very large city growth, a lot of environmental management challenges. And so it's actually about the underpinning investments that you can make now to benefit your economy more broadly. Promise I'll shut up now.
No, Rosh, is it all right if I just jump in just to respond, James? A lot of the things you said really resonated with me, and I think you used the word collaboration, and I think I work at an organisation where collaboration is our business, and it's really hard in some ways, but it's really easy in others. And I think that collaboration, for it to work, you've both got to really understand what both parties want to get out of the situation, and it doesn't have to be the same thing, but you've got to have a desire to work together. And I think that in the Earth observation space, I do believe we have quite a great global community already. It is the type of industry where we do like to work on international programs. The whole space program, I think, is a great example. So I think it's a really great place to start, and I think hopefully in programs like this we can learn to collaborate. There's challenges always, but learn some tips and tricks and tools to get over those hurdles that you have in collaboration, because I think, like you say, James, this is a digital technology, so the whole globe is the market. There aren't really too many regional boundaries, but there are regional differences, and I think that that's what collaboration brings, working with users closely to understand the challenges and the types of solutions that will work in a particular market and that will solve the problems that really need solving, not the ones that we think need solving or need solving in our society right now. So I think collaboration is the key, and it's something that I'm really excited that this program brings.
Thank you both, James and Kate. That was very, very thorough, and really great things for us to ponder about the role of collaboration as we come together to work towards addressing climate change. So I'd now like to introduce Megan McCabe, who is the Acting Director of National Planning International Relations at Geoscience Australia, for our closing remarks. Thank you very much, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Roshni. To conclude our showcase today, I would like to start by thanking our keynote speakers, so Kate, James and Pramit, for your excellent and thought-provoking presentations. I would also like to thank you, the audience, for your sustained engagement and discussions. We would like to acknowledge the work undertaken by Emma Luke of Geoscience Australia. Emma hasn't been able to join us today for the final showcase. However, she has been instrumental in the development and the delivery of activities for this initiative. So thank you, Emma, for all your hard work. Importantly, I would like to thank the participants of EOCSI. Your input, ideas, and enthusiasm has made this 2-year initiative a success, and we wish you the very best in the continued development of your use cases. As my colleague Amy Parker highlighted, one of the main goals of EOCSI was to encourage the uptake and application of Earth observation data to support more informed decisions. Our region is currently facing considerable climate-related challenges, and developing our decision-making capacity together as a community is an important way to ensure a safer and more sustainable future for our region. If you have any further questions or queries, please don't hesitate to contact either myself or Amy Parker. Our contact details are presented on the current slide. And with that, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great remainder of your day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you.